welcome to this week's edition of Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight we're going to be talking about a topic which is pretty serious. It's really difficult to talk about this topic. There's not an easy way to introduce it, and there's not an easy way to get through the questions, but we're going to do the best that we can. The topic of tonight is suicide prevention. Today is World Mental Health Awareness Day. And what better topic to talk about today than suicide prevention, and to work through a dialogue that hopefully can answer some questions for people who might be struggling, answer some questions for people who might also be in a family with someone who might be struggling with a challenge that could create within them a desire to take their own life or to end their own life. And so, again, this is not an easy topic, but we're going to get through the best way that we can. Thank you so much for being on tonight's show.
Thank you,
Dhyana. I'm joined tonight by Dhyana Parker, and she is a volunteer walk chair for the 2017 Out of the Darkness Community Walk. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having me here.
You are affiliated with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yes, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is a voluntary health organization that gives the affected by suicide nationwide community empowered by research, education, and advocacy. We take action against the leading cause of death. In fact, AFSP leads the fight against suicide. They do this through their mission to save lives and bring hope to those that are affected by suicide.
Wow. So how did you become involved with the organization?
I lost my brother in '94 to suicide, and I did my first walk, in 2013, and I became a volunteer in 2014.
Wow, so that's how many years now you've been?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've seen several years go by, and you've been working with the organization. Have you held different roles or worked with them in different ways as a volunteer?
As a volunteer, yes, I've just been part of different types of committees to help bring awareness and put the walk together. 2014, my family, we started working with the the remembrance table. So we ran the remembrance table. So we come in contact with a lot of different families and stuff like that.
Okay, what is the remembrance table?
The remembrance table is people normally give like a picture. They'll bring pictures or write little quotes, and we put it in a photo album. And this book goes to each different walks that's in the area.
Okay, so
yes.
What specific role are you playing this year with the walk?
This year, I am actually the walk chair for the walk that will be held on October the 28th.
Okay, and what does that involve? Sounds big. It sounds busy.
Yes, it's putting together this big walk. This is our 11th year.
Right.
And this is the last walk in the area, and usually the biggest walk in this area.
Okay, I think I read somewhere there's over 2,000 people are going to show up. That's a lot
That's
of people.
That's a lot, yes.
Wow. Well, good luck to you on coordinating that. So last month we observed Suicide Prevention Month, and today, as I mentioned earlier, is World Mental Health Day. How is AFSP really observing it this year?
So while we are dedicated to fighting suicide all year long, events like Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, Week, and Day, which is in September, and then we have the World Mental Health Day today. We have different opportunities for the community to connect, to do different outreach programs. We go to different schools. We have programming for schools, business, and places of worship, community organizations, and we pretty much make sure the information is out there. We give everyone the opportunity to find out more.
I'm thinking that the more you do this, it becomes less challenging to talk about this topic.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the day
right?
and the situation. Yes.
Right.
And also in November, we have what we call a Survivor Day. So this year is November the 18th. And Survivor Day, it brings people together that has lost someone by suicide. And this is done nationally in all 50 states. And we have an event in District of Columbia at Gallaudet University. And then we'll have one also in Northern Virginia, but we haven't picked the locations yet.
Okay, well, people can stay tuned to the
Yes.
website, and we'll put that
Yes.
web address up for people to be able to visit the website and see details on the various events that you all have coming up. Any trends on how suicide is impacting people in the United States?
Well, annually, 44,000 people in the U.S. die by suicide. That's every 40 seconds. And then for suicide, there's 25 attempts.
Right. Yeah. And then there's like 1 million attempts, right?
Yes,
People
there's a million
I mean,
attempts, and each suicide leaves 100 plus people without someone.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that means that every time a person takes his or her life, the people that they knew, their family members, their community of
Yes.
whoever, there's about 100 people approximately that
That
they
are
leave mourning or,
That are affected by it, yes.
yeah.
Suicide is actually the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, taking more than 44,000 lives annually. And in the U.S., it's like 800,000 annually.
That's a staggering number. I mean, I
Yes.
can't even wrap my mind around all of that. Those statistics are, I'm sure, being combated and trying to pull those statistics down so that more and more people are getting the help that they need. So, any trends on the various methods that people are using nowadays?
There are a few trends. Firearms is 50%, suffocation is 27%, poison is 15%, and then you have others.
Wow.
So,
And you mentioned you've lost someone to suicide. Can you help us understand how you were able to cope with that?
well, like I said, I lost my brother in '94 to suicide, and for 17 of those years, I was still suffering with depression, trying to cope with his death. Because in our community, we heard of it, but it's not. I never thought it would be associated with my life.
Right.
So during my research, I decided, okay, being a mother of 2 boys, I need to do something because they were young at the time when it happened. So I said, I need to get out of this rut that I'm in. So eventually I started searching for support groups.
Right.
And that's how I came across AFSP. I got my family together. I actually started going to a support group for suicide survivors.
Okay. So that was your was that your first step?
Yes. And
Okay.
then the second one was actually getting my family together in 2013, and we did our first walk. And then I said, okay, this was helping me, so let me try to do more. So I became a volunteer.
How did you make that transition into going into a support group? Was that difficult?
It was actually difficult because I was at that point where I didn't know what was going on with me, but then being around other people that are suffering, it was a great help because you realize you weren't alone. There is
Right.
help out here, and talking to everyone, hearing their different stories, and realize, okay, I'm not going this way, but I'm going this way. So everything was fine. The family that ran the support group, if I needed help or anything, they jumped right in.
Right. So how long ago was it that you went through the actual support group before you worked with the organization for the first time?
I did the support group. I started in 2012, and that's what pushed me to go ahead and let's do the walk. So, and the support of my family has been tremendous. They have been, and it's helped all of us as well, actually.
Right. And from your family, I mean, it was your brother. Were there other people in your family who dealt with it in a very difficult way?
Yes, my sons, they were 7 and 6 at the time. So now they're 30 and 31. So he was more like a brother to them, a big brother versus their uncle. And they took it hard. Everyone, because we were extremely close family. In the beginning, there was the 5 of us. It was my brothers and my 2 cousins. So we were the 5 musketeers. So it was extremely hard, especially when you're not used to something like that. You've heard of it, but you never expect it to happen in your life. So it helped a lot. My parents, we really didn't even talk about it, but we talk about it more now.
Right.
And we realized the signs were there.
It's so hard as a topic in
Yes.
a certain minority community, and we'll come back to that. It's just not an easy topic for anybody to talk about, but it's
Exactly.
even more challenging in minority communities to even approach this topic. There are some risk factors. Let's talk about some of those because there are some things that can make it more likely that a person would consider taking his or her own life. And those risk factors, we have them here that we can talk about.
Yeah, I believe the biggest risk factor, and they all play a part, is health conditions. You have individuals that suffer from mental health, and we don't want to talk about the mental health, or we don't want to seek help. You have the chronic ill conditions. You have someone that might have cancer that doesn't want to deal with it. Right. The chronic pain, the serious head injuries. And then you have historical factors. You have like family history of suicide or mental illness that no one wants to speak about, as usual. And then you have the environmental factors, prolonged stressful life events. You could have a death of a loved one that could take you to that point. Right. So it's so many different factors.
Right. And then you have warning signs. I mean, this is, I think, one of the most challenging things. It's, when a person has lost someone to suicide. Recently, I have lost someone in my life to suicide. And the first step, in that thought process is, why didn't I see the signs?
Right.
Was the person sending signs and I was just too busy or just not connected enough to notice that the person was crying out for help? There are some warning signs here that we can talk about.
Yeah, so you have someone that might talk about ending their lives, having no reason to live, being a burden to others. They might feel that way. Like if they are sick, they feel like they don't want anyone to have to take care of them, that they feel like they are a burden. So then you have the feeling trapped in unbearable pain. You have people with the different behavior factors. You have increased drug or alcohol use, anger, insomnia, withdrawing from activities, not wanting to be around family or friends or anyone.
Right. So you have a person, you know someone, and normally this is not their particular temperament, exactly. And then all of a sudden there's a gradual move toward this, or sometimes it can be pretty abrupt where they move toward these kinds of behaviors. And, as a society, we're so busy, we move so quickly that you might just say, oh, they're having a bad day,
Right.
Or maybe they're going through something, but may not think that it's as serious as, it might be for them.
And then going back, when we look at it and we sometimes talk about it and I think about it, the signs were there. But now, because I'm a part of AFSP, I know the signs. I know the warnings that are there.
Do you mean for your brother, the signs were there?
The signs were there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the signs were there, but not knowing is the problem. So the education is there.
In your mind, what were you thinking, that he was just not having...
To me personally, I just thought he was just having a bad day, because he was one of those really happy people that when he walked in a room, he lit up a room. So, and it was that fact. So just figured maybe he was just having a bad day. And because I didn't know the signs or thought about suicide or talked about it, would never pay attention.
Right, like we said, it's just not always something that's, that's a part of the conversation on a regular basis. One of the things that I found on the website for AFSP is always trust your gut.
Yes.
And that, even though you can look at the warning signs that a person may be displaying or not,
right.
And you can think about the, the actual causes, if you will.
Right.
We have sometimes this intuition that tells us that something's not right.
Right. It's just, if you feel something, don't be afraid to ask that question. If you feel like something is not right. And I think that's where we shy away from. It's like we don't want to talk about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's, how do you break the ice with that kind of conversation? I mean, it's because if you tell someone, or if you say, hey, are you okay? Sometimes they'll shut down on you.
Right.
If you even, hint that maybe your behaviors are, kind of concerning to me, then that might offend them. And so it's not an easy conversation to start.
It's not an easy one, but I think it's a much needed one, because I would never want anyone to have to go through the pain that my family has gone through.
Right.
So it's okay.
So you'll make that brave call.
Yes.
Make the brave call. And what are some of the things that you can do in that conversation?
If you feel that a person is not their self, talk to them in private, listen to their story, and see what they have to say. Ask them the question, have you thought about taking your life? And just tell them, if you're having problems, to go seek help. It's okay to ask for help. And I'm here. Just basically listen to them. Because sometimes that's what a lot of people just need, someone to listen. And like you said earlier, we're always so busy that we don't have that time.
Right.
And a lot of times you will not believe that person just needs someone to listen.
Right. And so that, the last thing we want to do is just tell them to call a hotline or something. Exactly. I mean, there's instances where you really want to stay with that person, right? And make sure that you can call someone who can come and support them if that conversation is heading in a direction that you really feel like you've exhausted all your resources in that conversation.
Yes.
Right. Well, stay right there, Danya. We'll be right back with more of Think Big. You're watching Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett, and I'm joined tonight by Dhyana Parker, and she is helping us understand some things about suicide prevention. Today is World Mental Health Awareness Day,
Yes.
and it's a very timely topic to be talking about. Now, recently you said you had been in a conversation with someone who was trying to help someone else avoid taking her own life.
Yes, I was at work and one of my coworkers came to me that she had a friend that was struggling, and I met up with the young lady. We went into one of the rooms and we sat down and we talked, and I listened to what she had to say. I explained to her my situation, told her about AFSP, and told her she really needs to seek help. And she said she knows this, but it was like she didn't want to take that step. And I told her it's necessary. You have a family, your family needs you, and you're worthy to be saved, so you need to seek help. So I was able to give her a therapist number, and she reached out to them, and she's doing better. We talk, and it's just amazing how, that's why I keep telling people, you never know what a person is going through.
Right.
Just because a person is smiling all the time, you never know the hurt that they're going through on the inside. So that smile might be bright on the outside, but inside they're hurting real bad. And people need to be conscious of that. Oh, you never know what another person's situation is. You never know what might push that person to the edge. And sometimes all it does is to listen. It really does.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you're always on, alert.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Just yesterday, as a matter of fact, 5:15 in the morning, I was on my way just to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
And I have this plate on the side of my car about the walk. And the young lady started talking to me about it, and it caught me off guard because I didn't know at first what she was mentioning, and she was talking about the sign. And we started talking, and she was saying she suffers from depression and the things that she's gone through. And I literally sat in this line, the drive-through, for maybe 15 minutes just talking to her about it, and offered her to come to the walk. And she was young, and the second leading cause of suicide is between the age of 15 and 34 in the United States. And she was a young girl, and she said she suffers from clinical depression. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So that must have really started your day off.
It did, and it was nice to hear. She said thank you, and she told me thank you for what you're doing, and she's going to be at the walk. So that helps a lot because I'm out here, and it's actually people are really paying attention when I think they're not paying attention.
Right.
Yes.
So for you and the work that you're doing and your own personal experiences with suicide, what is your greatest hope for being affiliated with AFSP?
That we bring more awareness, that people are not afraid to talk about it. We end the stigma for mental illness because it is real, it is very strong, and to continue to bring more awareness to it. And I want people to feel comfortable. I know it's not a comfortable topic to talk about, but I want them to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, so that it's not just something that's, popular to talk about in September and on a day like today, but every day people are taking their lives every day. Yeah. So there's always an opportunity, right?
And yes, especially in the biggest, sometimes it causes the biggest time it happens, usually around the holidays. And people needs to pay attention to that, stay a little focused on that as well. Right. Holidays can be rough, and especially if you were married and you lost your spouse, it can be rough. Or even just dealing with losing someone to suicide, because the holidays were extremely rough for me, because I know Christmas was my brother's his favorite day.
That was his favorite day.
And yes, and then our birthdays, we always did something special for each other for our birthdays. So when my birthday comes around, his birthday and the holidays is hard, but being around family, it helps a lot.
What kind of tips can you share for someone who may actually be struggling with those thoughts of taking his or her own life?
Reach out to someone. Seek help. The help is there. You have 911. You have the different hotlines to contact. And even if you don't want to go to that appointment, reach out to a therapist. Talk to your primary physician and let them know that you are having these issues. You're struggling.
Right. It can be challenging also for people who may not even know how to find a therapist, who may not know how to seek mental health counseling, and so I think there's also some work to be done just on a very basic level, letting people know here's a therapist, here's what they do, here's how you reach them.
Yes.
I mean, I think DC over the past a couple of years has been doing a much better job with letting people know that there is mental health support, because it is something that just hasn't been talked about.
No, and I've noticed that as well, because especially like with today in September, and we don't need to talk, and you said that as well, that you don't need to talk about it in September and October. It needs to be talked about it all around. And I've noticed that a lot of people are talking about it more, mental illness and stuff like that. So DC needs to we're getting there.
Yeah, it's coming along.
Yes.
But I think it's a trend across the states in general. Just we're kind of behind other nations in terms of being able to talk about mental health. But I do think that over the last decade or so, the United States has come farther with making this a not so uncomfortable topic to talk about. So you are now gearing up for this big old walk, 2,000 plus people at the Lincoln Memorial, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the actual walk.
So the walk will take place on October the 28th at the Lincoln Memorial. This is our first year doing the walk at the Lincoln Memorial. We're normally at the Sylvan Theater.
Okay.
So the walk's registration starts at 2 p.m. Then we'll have our open ceremony at 4 o'clock. We have a few guest speakers. And then the official walk will start on at 4:30.
Right.
So we have about 20 different resource tables, people coming out to give information. And this is a good opportunity to come and get different information on. We have a lot of organizations that deal with mental illness.
Right.
So they will be there to hand out information for the military, everyone. So it's for everyone. It's not just geared toward one organization or one section.
Right.
So,
Do you have a route for how long is the
so
walk?
the walk is about 3.5 miles, give or take.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to go through the different memorials around the tidal basin. Then we're going to walk back up through the reflecting area and come back to the Lincoln Memorial for the closing ceremony. And the closing ceremony is amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's amazing.
That's great. So, I mean, on average, how long will people be out there?
So if you come at 2 o'clock, 'cause like I said, we have different activities for everyone, and we actually have a children's area. So children, please bring the kids and the entire family. Give or take till about 7 o'clock. So that includes the walk, then the closing ceremony, and then that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, earlier you mentioned when we were off air that you've seen, very young
Yes.
to very old, 9 to 92, if you
Yes.
will.
Yeah.
That's a really big stretch.
And I tell people, suicide or mental illness does not have age, color. It doesn't care what type of house you live in, what type of car you drive. It's real. And I've read the stories where there was a child that was 8 because he was being bullied at school. He had taken his life. And within that time, I was reading different articles. There was a young lady that was 8. The young boy was 8, then a young lady that was 12, and one was 15. And the sad part is all 3 were actually being bullied at school. And the older lady that was 92, she was going through medical. She's never been sick or anything, and something happened, and it put her in a nursing home. And that's where that burden part, she felt like she was being a burden because she was so independent that she didn't want to be a burden to anyone. So, and it has, it has no age limit whatsoever.
Wow.
So you never know what a person is dealing with. I've been in a support group where one of the ladies, her brother was 75, and they think he just found out that he had cancer. So it was like he just didn't want to be that burden.
Wow. So, what's next for you when the actual walk is over?
When it's over, I'm going to take a break, but I'm going to push myself a little further to continue on this journey because I realize it's no longer, because there's been times where I've said, okay, this is just too much. Then I realize it's not about me. It's just when I speaking with the young lady yesterday morning, it's not about me. It's about that next person. It's about that next family, to save them. I don't want any other families to have to deal with this type of loss. There's a hole in your heart that you'll never repair. There's so many things that we miss. He didn't see my sons grow up. He didn't see them have a family, and both of them have a career. So it's like I look at my grandkids and I see that he's missing that. I see my little cousins, and they didn't get an opportunity to meet someone like him. So I don't want any other family to have to deal with that.
Right. So you're going to stay engaged in other ways.
Yes.
That's good to know, because that sounds like you're doing some really good work.
I'm trying.
Yeah. No. Now for the walk, there is a fundraising component. Is that mandatory? Because I've already signed up, and I'm excited. I'm going to be out there and waving my flag.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
But is there a mandatory fundraising component?
No, there's not. They could just go to afsp.org/DC, and they can register as a walker, a volunteer, a virtual walker, or a team captain.
Right.
And there's no set amount of money to register or to walk. We do want fundraiser because that helps us keep the money in the community. That helps with the education and support like that. But there's no set goal. We just want everyone to know that there's someone out here. There is help. just come out and be around us.
Wow. I mean, an AFSP, I mean, it's a very large organization. You guys have chapters in all 50 states, right?
Yes, and we have walks all year round. So, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you know what? You're doing this walk this year. You're chair here, but you could be the chair of another walk next year, maybe.
Maybe. Maybe.
Look at me, I'm giving you 5
right.
jobs. I'm giving you 5 jobs.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, is there any other information that you want to leave behind for people who may be watching right now?
There's help. Like I keep saying, and I put emphasis on that, and I keep saying that because I want people to know that the help is there. Reach out. We have a hotline number that I don't know by heart. I'm sorry. That's 1-800. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry. It's 1-800-273-TALK, and that's a hotline, and we can pass you on to different health people that can reach out to you. You can talk to someone. We also have a crisis text line, and that number is 741-741. So if you have questions or if you're nervous to even just talk to someone, you can use that text line.
Right.
Yes.
And how does that work when they call the prevention lines? Are they automatically turned over to someone, or do some of those calls just, do they help them right away and they can hang up?
They have a hotline, and people are when they are trained to be able to talk to someone and to recognize if we need to call 911 right then and there, because we'll just tell, okay, look, we need to call 911 to find out what's going on. The people that are on the hotline, they have training on how to decipher what is going on, which area we need to send the information to, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So that walk again is on October 28th.
Yes.
Getting there at 2:00 is what Dhyana is recommending.
Recommended. We have a lot of different things going on. Like I said, the resource tables. And the people that do our resource areas, they come from so many different organizations, from the colleges, from military, from local government agencies. And they're excited to give out their information and let people know that there's help there. We have different little activities for the kids going on. We have a little different things going on this year as well.
Right.
So, yes.
You think your brother would be proud right now?
I hope so, and I hope I'm making my family proud. And everyone keeps telling me that, and they keep telling me he's proud of me. So, yeah.
What was his name?
His nickname was Rocky, but his name is Sterling Parker. So,
wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to flash some statistics here, just so that it's clear that suicide continues to be a challenge, not only in the United States, very locally. We've got some statistics on Washington, D.C. and Virginia. And then, globally, it's not just in the States, it's worldwide. So take some time to go to afsp.org and do a little research on their website. Make sure you check out the walk. I'm going to be there. I would love to see you there. Connect with me on social if you want to join me in the walk. If you want to walk, as Dhyana has said, it's not mandatory to raise funds, although those funds are helpful. And so thank you so much again for watching. I hope to see you at the walk. And again, reach out to me if you want to join me. Have a good evening.